The latest developments in Sweden and Finland's bids to join NATO saw all 30 NATO allies sign off on the accession protocols. This sends their membership bids to the alliance capitals for legislative approvals. The 30 ambassadors and permanent representatives formally approved decisions made at a NATO summit in Madrid last week, but securing parliamentary approval for the new members in Turkey could still pose a problem. The country's president warned last week that Ankara could block the process. Well, with us now to unpack this is Dr. Balkan Devlen, foreign policy expert and senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Dr. Devlen, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Thanks for having me again.
Now, the signing off on accession protocols happened just days after Turkey withdrew its veto over the expansion. However, Turkey still warns that it could still block the process. So what sort of demands is Turkey making, and will these Nordic nations be able to oblige?
There are a few things that were put forward by Turkey. One was the primary one, was about extradition of certain names that Turkey demanded from both Sweden and Finland. Primarily targeting PKK, the Kurdish terrorist organization, and alleged members of those organizations, as well as Gülenists who were implicated and accused by Turkey of carrying out the military coup attempt back in 2016. To be frank, Finland really got caught in the middle. The real beef between Turkey and Sweden, and Turkey has been critical of Swedish support for what they consider to be terrorist organizations and others. So this was an opportunity to be able to get that. So that's number one. Number two was this informal arms embargo that both countries were imposing on Turkey, and that would be lifted. Those were the two primary things, and I'm pretty sure there was also a talk of speeding up the F-16 purchases from the U.S. So, but that was not necessarily part of the official communique and the memorandum of understanding that was signed. And the deal was basically that Sweden and Finland said that they will work with Turkey in terms of extraditing those names, but within, of course, their laws and regulations. So we'll see whether that would go through. As you pointed out, there is now the ratification process, which is the last sort of step, and we might still see some drama over there.
And we know the next step is parliamentary approval. So what will that entail?
So every country have their own sort of legal system of ratifying the new members. In Turkey, it would go to the parliament, and the parliament would need to ratify the agreement that will allow Sweden and Finland be NATO members. Given that President Erdogan's coalition, his party, and the Nationalist Action Party, which is sort of the coalition that supports in the parliament President Erdogan, have the majority. If there is basically a green light from Erdogan, that would go through. Now, what I would expect is that there will be another round of drama over there at that time, and see whether there are further demands that are coming from Turkey, or whether the demands were sufficiently met by Sweden and Finland, and this would go through. But expect another round of drama and coming down to the wire at the end of the ratification process.
Sounds like a lot of drama to be expected, Dr. Devlen. Now, if this expansion were to go through, we know NATO forces may be at the Finnish-Russian border. So what does this mean for Mr. Putin's war in Ukraine?
Well, hopefully it will mean that will stretch their capabilities, although Putin was a bit nonchalant about the membership, saying that this doesn't necessarily impact Russia, but turned around and they said if there are NATO bases or nuclear weapons, that they will have to act. I would say that whatever the official line is, they would now have to consider that they have a much longer northern border with NATO, and that would tie down some of the Russian forces, at least ISR capabilities, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities there, which should have a negative impact on Russia's fight in Ukraine. But we will see whether in the long term, whether that would change their force posture.
All right, Dr. Devlen, a really quick 30 seconds left here, but what are you keeping your eyes on in this process?
Well, the thing I'm really keeping my eye on is whether the next sort of round of drama and negotiations between Turkey and NATO and Sweden and Finland will lead to another breakthrough at the last minute, or whether Erdogan push for a harder bargain. My sense is that it will come down to the wire, but Erdogan will concede, and this will be ratified, and Finland and Sweden will be members of NATO.
Lots to keep our eyes on. Dr. Devlen, always great having you on Forum Daily. Thank you again for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up after the break, we'll examine the impacts that war and violence can have on a child's education. Stay with us. We'll be back after a short break.